Welcome to Dory Cote on Shamanism, a weekly podcast that explores one theme in shamanism throughout each month. Get comfortable, have a seat, and let's get started.
Welcome to this week's podcast. We're going to talk this week about bliss. What is your bliss, and how do you find that?
Dory, speaking as a shamanic practitioner, how do you describe bliss or being blissful?
Yes, I have to say that, for a lot of years of my life, I really had no idea what people were talking about when they talked about being in bliss. And I don't think I'm an exception to the rule. I believe that many people do not ever experience that sense of bliss because they're not feeding their hungry soul, which is what we talked about last week. And so what I mean now, as I understand bliss, because I do get to experience bliss and a state of blissfulness quite often, is when we really achieve that connection of body, mind, soul, where all three aspects of ourselves are in perfect alignment and all is being served simultaneously, the body, the mind, and the soul. When we achieve that, then we are in a state of bliss. And describing bliss is almost impossible. It is an experience. It's just like, how do you describe happy to somebody who's never been happy? The same challenge is true to try to describe a state of bliss to someone who's never experienced bliss. The experience of bliss is something that you get to, and then you know you're there when you're there. It's like, oh, this is what people have been talking about. This is what bliss is. So for me, that aha moment of being in my bliss really all related to when I began to study shamanism and got deeper into the practice of shamanism and was able to connect the dots between the experience of being in a shamanic journey and understanding how to translate that experience of being in a journey into my everyday life, so that I became the shamanic practitioner rather than just practicing shamanism. It's a state of being, and that is my bliss, that place of being when I'm in perfect alignment, body, mind, soul. So in short, that is my description of, from a shamanic perspective, what do we mean by bliss? It's that place when body, mind, soul come together and all aspects of self are being equally served and everything is in perfect alignment.
How can we develop the capacity to align our body, mind, and spirit to achieve this state of bliss?
Yes, well, there is the practice. And I go back to some of what I said last week, which is about how so often in this culture, in this time, so little attention is paid to the needs of the soul. And so we have to begin with understanding that in order to achieve this state of bliss, we really have to have a sense of well-being in our body, for starters. So I'm not talking about being ultimately healthy, because there are many people who have really serious illnesses, diseases, and life-threatening situations, who can be in a state of well-being despite their pain, their suffering, and their dis-ease. So being in a state of well-being is understanding that your body is absolutely perfect just as it is, that there is nothing broken. It just is what it is right now. and moving into that state of well-being. The same is true for understanding how we achieve well-being in our mind and emotional self. It's about understanding what is, not what is not. So coming into alignment with, okay, what is today is that I feel sad because a friend of mine died. I don't have to fight the sadness. It doesn't mean my mind isn't well. It doesn't mean my emotions aren't well. I am sad. I can be in a state of bliss and also have the emotion of sadness. I don't have to fight against that. So being in alignment with what is with the body, that sense of well-being in the body, a sense of well-being in your mind and emotional self, whatever is happening in your mind and in your emotions is what is in the moment. And then there's the health and well-being of your soul. And that requires attention. Just like you pay attention to your body, you pay attention to your mind and your emotional selves, you pay attention to your soul. What is it your soul is hungering for, as we talked about last week? And when you feed your soul what it needs, and you pay attention to the well-being of your soul, and all three aspects of yourself are in that state of well-being, then you are in a state of bliss. So developing the capacity to achieve this state of bliss really is all about paying attention to the well-being of all aspects of who you are, and looking to achieve that synergy that occurs, that coming together, that merging of body, mind, soul in a way that one can actually achieve that state of bliss.
I love what you're saying here. You were talking in the last question about how when you brought the understanding of how your journeying could be brought into your everyday life, some of that learning, I saw the image almost of integrating body, mind, and soul, of letting body and mind serve soul, and mind and soul serve body, and whatever the third version is.
Yes.
But that getting a team that works well together is also part of developing the muscle of bliss. Is that accurate?
That's absolutely accurate. It is about a merger and integration, as you say. It's about the well-being of all three aspects of self and how they are working with one another in harmony and with ease, so that no aspect of self is left out of the triad.
No part of being is left behind.
Exactly. Exactly.
So getting practical, what practices do you recommend for people to explore when they're trying to master the concept of bliss in their own being?
Well, that again is so dependent upon the individual. In my case, of course, my practice is shamanism. So I know at this point in my life what truly does bring me that sense of bliss. For those who are seeking to understand that, I recommend that they try a variety of things. We have to explore, I remember being a teenager and thinking, oh my, everything I ever am going to experience in life has already happened. And so I know how to ride a bike, I know how to roller skate, I know how to do arithmetic, I know how to write. And I figured, that was it, that was life. And, the older I get, the more I realize there are so many things in life that I still want to experience, that the number is infinite. And so for somebody who's trying to find that elusive state of bliss, I recommend, regardless of their age, that they step outside of their comfort zone and find something that has some sense of interest to them, and pursue it, because that might be a subtle message from their soul. I want to do this. I want to try this. I want to explore this. And in so doing, exploring this piece that is kind of calling to you a little bit, you may find exactly that perfect alignment that takes you to that place of bliss. I remember in my own life that, I grew up in a household where creativity was not very much honored, particularly anything that had to do with the arts or dance or anything of that nature. And so, I grew up well into my 40s and 50s believing, that negative piece about, oh, I'm not a creative person, which is so untrue. It is just absolutely untrue. And so when I came to a place of understanding that, oh, maybe, I really do feel like I would like to learn how to make jewelry, and it took me about a year to finally say, I'm just going to go try. What's the worst thing that can happen? I don't like it. I fail. I create a piece of jewelry that nobody likes. So that's the worst possible scenario. Well, in doing that and going out and taking some classes in making jewelry, I discovered, I really love this. This really feeds my soul. It's a place where I can go and I can be by myself. I can explore these beautiful, juicy, different colored beads and textures and put things together that really, feed me, particularly when I'm making a piece of jewelry for a particular person. I feel like I'm creating something that I'm going to gift to someone. So stepping outside of my own comfort zone was something that I needed to do to find a place where I did actually experience a state of bliss. And I believe that that's the key here for most people. It's about, don't allow yourself to go to that place of believing that you have lived all that life has to offer and now you're at the end of the road, whether you're 25, 45, 75, or 105. There is always something new out there that you can explore. There is always some aspect of self that you can discover. And so maybe, like here in Maine, and I'm sure probably in a lot of places, we have senior college, so people who are retired can go exercise their mind by studying, Middle Eastern history or something. And that calls to them. And they go and they throw themselves into it. And being in that class and in that study brings them that state of incredible well-being and possibly steps them into that place where their soul is also being fed and they are then in a state of bliss. So always explore, 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 explore. Keep living life every day. Life has so much to offer. That's how you'll find your bliss.
It sounds like we need to give ourselves permission to be playful and to explore.
Yes, that's really true, Jill. For people growing up in my generation, play was something that we did, but then we reached a certain age where play was no longer acceptable, and we all need to play. I don't care what your age is. You have to have that sense of play and exploring, always exploring. When we began to explore the moon, people thought, well, that's it. There's nothing left to learn. We've gone to the moon. Well, the cosmos is huge. There's always new things to learn. And the same is true in our individuality. There's always something new to experience, something new to learn, a new way of being, a new way of exploring life, and pushing the boundaries of who you are and allowing yourself to play and enjoy, feed your soul.
Do you have anything else you would like to add on this topic at this time?
No, thank you. I feel complete with this. Thank you for for this dialogue. It's been really good.
Thank you for listening to Dory Cote on Shamanism. We'd love to hear your thoughts, stories, reactions, and questions. Come on over to dorycote.com and join the conversation. And tune in next week for more on this subject, or next month for a new subject. You can subscribe to this podcast in iTunes or sign up on dorycote.com to receive notices when the podcasts are posted. That's Dory, D-O-R-Y, and Cote, C-O-T-E.com. Drumming and rattling by Dory Cote and Terry Morgan. Technical assistance and audio production by JillHackett.com. And this is Susan Savelle, wishing you many blessings in your life. We hope to have you join us next time.